Hey everyone, so today we are driving the 19 Bolt EV. I just wanted to give you guys a little bit of a 6-month ownership review of the car, just because we actually have had it for that amount of time, although we haven't actually had it in our possession that long. The vehicle has been essentially within the family since that time frame. So just wanted to give you guys a little bit of an update on impressions on the car and ultimately how it's been like to live now that we've currently had it also in the winter too. So driving the Bolt here, with that, it's been an overall pretty decent vehicle. Now, of course, this is after the reduction gear temperature sensor and casing was replaced, just because that unfortunately was causing a lot of issues with how the vehicle was driving, additionally its efficiency, and also probably the temperature regulation of the car as well, since it was eating up a lot and causing the fans to run like crazy. Granted, it was hot when all of this took place, so the vehicle may just be noisy in the summer months. We'll know more once we actually, if it had it through a full summer. But this vehicle, in terms of its behaviors, has been much better since that reduction gear casing was replaced. Now, I did initially want to take this on a 370-ish mile trip, and I know the car can do it. The thing is that I'm a little bit worried about my trip because this would actually leave me about 200 miles without a charging station between Phoenix and Kingman. And the trip there is not so much my concern. The trip back, however, is something I'd be concerned with, since that is mainly an uphill climb. And I tested this going to Laughlin, because with Boulder City to Laughlin, it is a 70 mile, maybe it's about 78 mile drive. And I was able to get down there actually with a lot of charge left over, but on the way back, the hills did eat a significant portion of that charge. So with that, in combination of cold weather, it wasn't necessarily ideal for me to consider bringing this on that trip until they build charging infrastructure in the midpoint between Kingman and Phoenix. Otherwise, though, I would have had no problems with the trip and would have attempted it, but I'm not going to jeopardize my safety and also with that have a car now that I have to tow 200 miles home. However, for small local trips or maybe even a trip to LA, I would consider taking this car. Yes, it does make the drive a little bit longer. However, the pricing for electricity versus like gasoline is significantly lower, even if I am using more public charging. Now, I do use a level 2 charger at our city hall for days that I do need to get a quicker charge than that of a level 1, and the vehicle will charge adequately to the point where it costs me maybe about $12, $13. And that, of course, can last me a few days. And also, that's not including the charging that I do at home, which in that regard, it does bring your electricity bill up a little bit. It brought mine up roughly about $20 to $30 if I have it plugged in every single day, but I don't. Sometimes I do leave it unplugged, and if I do plug it in during the day, it's because I have something going on the next day that requires more than what, I've gotten from the charging station. Now, in terms of its handling characteristics, it's been great. The only thing I have noticed, though, and I'm not really too pleased with, is the suspension is pretty creaky. Now, it doesn't do it so much in hot weather, which tells me that this probably is more of a bushing aging issue versus the rear axle failure, because in cold weather, the car does make a lot of noise, but in hot weather, like we had an abnormally hot day yesterday, the bushings were actually silent, or the suspension was silent as well. So I have a feeling this could be more of like lubrication of the bushings being an issue versus the rear axle completely failing and requiring a suspension replacement. But I mean, we'll be able to tell once I actually go get the tires rotated, which I will have them do just to make sure that the car is compliant with its maintenance schedule. Overall, though, I mean, this thing has been an absolute gem to have. Honestly, it's been a godsend in terms of the actual savings that we've had in fuel. I know it sounds kind of goofy to take on a car payment to replace a car that you already, well, not replace, but to replace the daily that you already have. But when you take a look at the fuel costs, at least for me and my husband, we both were driving so much that a car payment, the mild insurance increase, and the extra maintenance was actually better on our finances than driving the two SUVs around, because although our cars are pretty good on gas, the Subaru Ascent not so much, but the Mazda, yes, we were still spending a significant amount on fuel. It was insane. So this kind of makes up for that. $10 a week sometimes is what we spend on this car. The most I've spent in a week, and this was actually taking this car like 500 or 600 miles, was around, I would say, $40 or $50. And that's just because I couldn't use a cheaper fast charging station because my Tesla adapter hadn't come in yet. So this one place was charging an enormous amount for charging, and it was a charge point location, and quite frankly, I was not too pleased with how much I spent at that station. I was pretty pissed. So yeah, a Tesla adapter honestly makes a world of difference also in how this car is charged. I haven't needed to really fast charge it in maybe a couple weeks, but with that, it does come in handy when you do need it. So Tesla adapters for GM vehicles, get one. Honestly, it was a godsend because we have a lot of Tesla chargers here that are NAC compatible, but with that, or CCS1 compatible, like shares compatibility with GM, but not a lot of Electrify America stations that are available. And luckily, where I go to charge the car if I absolutely need to is usually dead anyway, so I always have a charger available. And I can also charge in Arizona if I need to at Last Stop, somewhere around there, whenever I go buy lottery tickets. I don't always need to, but sometimes I just like to top off and do my scratchers while the car is charging. One thing I will say in my 6 months of ownership is I really thought the charging schedule would bother me more. Now, granted, I think it's also the security blanket of having a gas vehicle in the event I do need it, but the charging of this car really is not that inconvenient. Now, it would be if I were on a long trip, which is why I will be taking the Mazda when I do go to Arizona next time. But in terms of like getting around and navigating, like honestly bringing this car really helps because I can charge while I'm actually doing activities. If I can find a charging station when I'm at the casino, bam, there's free charging right there. When I go to visit my mom, because sometimes she with her working, and then I also occasionally do some stuff at the hospital, I can charge right there. They have charging stations there. If I have to go shopping at Walmart, which I rarely do, there's an Electrify America there if I need it. So the charging you just learn to work with in incorporating into your schedule. And realistically, what's nice is you don't have to wait by your car when you're fueling, which is where the difference in electric vehicles comes into play, is you can leave the vehicle unattended. And yes, some people may goof around with it if they decide to, but like, it's so convenient in terms of being able to like find charging stations and just like, even if you sit there for 30 minutes, it goes by pretty quickly. Watch a movie, watch YouTube. We play on our phones anyway. Make use of it and charge your car. Range anxiety. Do I have it? Not necessarily. I did initially, and it was bad. Like, I thought that this car was like, oh my god, I regret buying this thing. Like, when we first bought it, granted, we didn't know about the issue with the reduction gear at the time, but we were just like, oh my god. Or I was panicking. I was having buyer's remorse. I wanted to cry. I was sitting at South Point because I could not find any level 3s, and everybody just had to charge that day. And it's only happened once since then. It did happen to my partner as well one day. This was before, of course, we got the Tesla adapter. But yeah, sometimes it can be super frustrating. But I don't have range anxiety when it comes to this vehicle. I really feel like, you know, the estimates are pretty spot on with how much I've driven and recorded. Additionally, also, a lot of my driving, I always factor in that I'm going to be doing mostly highway, which is harder on electric cars. So I know my range is not going to be as adequate as somebody who's been stuck in traffic. Because let me tell you, this thing in traffic is amazing. You barely use any electricity whatsoever, and the constant regen you're getting from the brakes is amazing. So there's a really good benefit of having an EV is if you know you're going to be in traffic, like on the 405 in Los Angeles, bro, your car is going to last forever with battery power. Additionally, also, with this, I do wish this had adaptive cruise, just so I could actually use this in traffic and have and be lazy with like autonomous behavior. But I'm not gonna lie, it's not too bad in terms of having this, you know, not adaptive cruise. I guess it just forces me to pay attention. But yeah, guys, 6-month ownership has been mostly positive. Now, granted, of course, during this next summer, I probably will have a little bit of a different opinion, just because at that point, the AC is going to be running, the car is going to be hot. But when it comes down to it, it's been an overall gem for the time that we have had it. And, you know, we did go a couple months without it, but that's because of a part that was on back order. And hopefully we won't have to replace that part again. And it also gave me my 90,000 mile service for the car, because it needed they required it, or you should change the transmission fluid at 90,000 miles for this vehicle. So there we go. But yeah, guys, if you guys need anything further, please do not hesitate to reach out, and thank you for watching. Have a good one.